Hi, I'm Adam. I'm a digital navigator with the Whitman County Library System, and today we're going to be talking about Internet Service Providers, or ISPs. Now, how does an ISP work? Well, they're actually pretty neat. They're companies that own certain parts of the infrastructure that then vaguely promise a little bit of bandwidth to you in terms of a subscription fee for access to the infrastructure. Now, that may be a little bit vague or broad, but that's really how it works, is we have computers, they have computers, and we try to access theirs. And these internet service providers can be tiered based upon that type of infrastructure. If you remember the days of old with dial-up where we had to click and you hear the phone kind of dialing, the computer dialing out to the other computer, it made a lot of noises back and forth and it was really slow, but we still got information. They were just using the infrastructure of the telephone line system to send an analog system from one to the other. And that was the first tier. And that worked for a long time, especially if you remember America Online, you get in those CDs all the time. That's the infrastructure that they were leasing, owning, and borrowing to create that service availability. The next one is DSL, or Digital Subscriber Line. And that was the next tier up, where it provided faster speeds because it was then using a digital signal, but still using the copper lines from the telephone systems. So that's why on your installs, if you had it there, you had it. If you didn't, you didn't. Or sometimes it was just really poor signal because of the old phone lines and the old copper lines. The next tier up is cable, or cable internet service providers. They're just using the infrastructure from cable TV networks that ran all that additional coaxial, thicker copper pipes all the way throughout all of our neighborhoods. But once again, either you had it or you didn't. The next tier up from there is, my favorite, is the fiber lines. And fiber is so cool because it's no longer using copper telephone lines or copper cable TV. It is actually glass threads that are reflecting light down the line, which is absolutely incredible. With cable or DSL, if you have a lot of subscribers all hitting the internet all at the same time, there is signal degradation. However, fiber, because it's glass reflecting light, there is no signal degradation. The one step up from there, which may not be a full step up, is satellite. It is just a little bit higher in the sky. And with satellite, you get the dish, you attach it to your house, and once again, you're transmitting signal, trying to access their infrastructure to be able to receive information. Now there is what I would call Satellite Plus, which is Starlink, and they are having incredible speeds of cable TV, cable internet service provider speeds on a satellite system. Now, why does it matter, the infrastructure? Well, the infrastructure determines a bit of the type of speed that the company can promise you. And I will continue to say that it's vaguely promised, just because if they say, hey, you're gonna get 200 megabytes down, sometimes you'll get 190 or 195, because there's always gonna be a little bit of loss in the overhead of the bandwidth. Just because your mobile device or computer might not be able to use the full Wi-Fi speed of your internet service provider, well, that might be a multitude of elements. And so to protect themselves, it's usually within a margin of error part. The other thing internet service providers will do is they'll typically promise you a certain amount of downstream and upstream, meaning how fast can I download information and how fast can I upload information. Most companies will say we will give you 200 megabytes down and maybe 10 or 20 megabytes up. And so they do have this imbalance. However, for their networks, it saves them a lot of data processing. And typically, as a user, we're more concerned about how fast can I download stuff, how fast can I watch a movie, how many movies can I watch, and the download is a lot more important. In most of fiber scenarios, however, we do get to have what we call symmetrical, meaning it is 200 megabytes down and 200 megabytes up. Now I am using the term megabytes, and that is what is most common today. However, there is a difference between kilobits, kilobytes, megabits, megabytes, gigabit, and gigabyte. Eventually, we'll hopefully get faster speeds than that, but there is a key difference. As you can see on this chart, there is a difference of magnitude of order between a bit and a byte. If you're trying to stream 4 to 5 Netflix shows all at the same time, well, you're gonna want a really high megabyte stream coming in, or possibly something more from a fiber line. At this point, if you're curious of what infrastructure is available for your home, give us a call. We'll have the digital navigator information listed in the description below. We'll talk to you, we'll work with you to see what's gonna work best and what may be available for you. We'll also help you with the ACP to see if there's ways for you to be able to receive internet services at a subsidized amount. Now, if you do have internet in your home, or maybe you're now looking at it, we're kind of getting you set up, there's a few things to keep in mind. The first device that the internet service provider is going to provide you or ask you to rent is called a modem. A modem is just a device that allows you to take whatever signal type and transduce it into what we call Ethernet. So that's going to be your Cat5, Cat5e, or Cat6. There are older ones, but we don't recommend them. And you can then take that Ethernet cable and plug it directly into your computer. Just because your computer may not have a fiber connection or a coaxial cable connection available. That being said, you then need to have what we call a router. A router is another device that will provide additional expansion for multiple wired devices, and in most cases these days, wireless access for your whole household. So you go from the modem, which is your coaxial or fiber line, and then it gets plugged into a router that then routes it to the rest of your household devices. We have our modem, we have our router, we hop to our computer, we can then do a speed test. If you go to Google, type in what's my internet speed, they have their own self-checker, and then you can just go ahead and click, check my speed, and then hit start. Once you start that internet speed connection test, you're just gonna see it ramp up or ramp down depending on that speed. And if that speed is less than what we are actually paying for, then that's when we wanna maybe start looking at doing some troubleshooting. The first thing you can look at is the router actually the one slowing me down? The cool thing is you can actually unplug the modem from the router and just take that Ethernet and plug it directly into your computer and then run the speed test again. If you're then getting your advertised speeds, then you know that there may be an issue inside of the router. If you go ahead and plug it back into the router and run the test again, and the speed degradation occurs, there's a couple things that might be. The first step is to power cycle the equipment. When we say power cycle, that means we want to unplug the router and let it sit for 1 to 2 minutes. The reason we do this is because there may still be electricity inside the capacitors that are saving some settings, saving some information that may be the reason that you're having those slowdowns. After the 2 minutes, go ahead and plug it in, wait 30 to 40 seconds for that to reboot, and then do the speed test again. If you're still having speed degradation at that time, there may be a setting in your router that you'll want to check called quality of service, or QoS. That QoS is a way to help determine and make sure that the entire household has internet accessibility at the highest speed equally, which means it may limit a few devices from the total cap of the internet so that everyone can have a piece of the pie. If you're wanting to make sure that you always have that piece of the pie, just go ahead and turn that off, or leave it on and know that that's probably the cause of the trouble. Now, wireless networks come in a lot of shapes and sizes. When you go to the store, there's mesh devices, there's normal access points, but then some are access points, some are wireless routers, but then they have extenders. There's a lot of products out there. What we typically recommend in a normal household is just a single wireless router that maybe have dual antenna and dual channel systems. They can do the 5 GHz and the 2.4 GHz spectrums. This ensures that new devices and older devices are still compatible. Right now, Wi-Fi 6 is the latest protocol to be hitting the market, and we do recommend picking up the latest edition router, just so that when you get a new phone or a new mobile device or even a new laptop, that it is able to hit the highest speeds possible. Now, in a multi-antenna environment, you're usually able to do more devices and be able to do a wider area. But if you're worried about maybe your neighbors or passing cars, as long as you have it secured, nobody else can hop onto your network. However, you can, in most routers, set the power broadcast to be a higher broadcast limit or a lower broadcast limit, so that maybe you don't want wireless outside of the walls of your home. Just go ahead and lower that power broadcast. And there's a lot of variation in these. We do recommend buying the newest or latest device that you can find. Some of the older devices may have incompatibilities or additional issues that maybe there's a reason that it's older and needs to be updated. The life cycle for these devices typically sits between 3 and 4 years. However, I have had devices last longer, but then we're not able to take advantage of the speed boosts or other routing elements that would help the household. We do recommend Ubiquiti and a lot of TP-Link devices, which if you're interested, please check out the description below for a few recommendations. There are Wi-Fi extenders as well. Maybe you have it in the corner of your house and oh man, there's just that one spot. We actually do not recommend those wireless extenders because they are often really slow. They work more of a repeater, and so they're receiving the signal from the main device, grabbing it, and then rebroadcasting it to your other device. And that can really delay the systems. In most cases, it is even better to just take the main router and move it to a more central location in the home. And we also do recommend putting it in a place high up. Now, one of the latest things to come out is mesh networking. However, in most home scenarios, this is not required. Now, wireless access points. That is a really cool device. A typical access point is a lot different than your router because it's meant to be just an access point. So you'll have your wireless router that also has its own wired capabilities, and you'll run an extended Ethernet cable to wherever you want that access point to be. And the cool thing with these access points is you can have them on the side of your house. You can even run a 100-foot cable all the way out to a barn or a different unit, and then install an access point at that location. That way, wherever you are in your household or on your property, you can have access to wireless internet for your laptops, mobile devices, or tablets as needed. And if you do have more questions about how to do that, once again, feel free to reach out to the digital navigators. We also work with other contractors who do that on a regular basis. If you're curious about how to best set up for your household and property, reach out, give us a call. We would love to help you. If you have any questions about any of this material or how to get on the ACP program for subsidized internet, give us a call in the description below and have a wonderful day.